Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me this evening. I come to you tonight to answer a number of messages that I have received from Canadian citizens all across your country. They're concerned about the recent developments in China and what impact it will have on our work with the Canadian people who are fighting to preserve freedom and liberty. But first, ladies and gentlemen, I'm compelled to respond to a statement by the Prime Minister of Canada regarding China. Now, I know full well that some of the Prime Minister's supporters, if not members of Parliament who support him, citizens who support him, watch our broadcast every Thursday night. So I'm going to ask you especially to listen to what I have to say with regard to what the Prime Minister had to say regarding the invasion, and that's what I call it, invasion of the Chinese military onto the streets of their citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to read the statement that your Prime Minister in Canada said in regard to that invasion, and I'm calling it an invasion because that's what it is. This is from Prime Minister Trudeau. Everyone in China should be allowed to protest. We will continue to ensure China knows we will stand for human rights and with people who are expressing themselves. My question to the Prime Minister is simply this. Explain to your people, explain to the people in my country, explain to people around the world why you unleashed excessive force on peaceful Canadian protesters. Your statement is hypocritical. Hypocritical to no end. I mean, to stand up before the world and to lead them to believe that you're supporting human rights, supporting individual rights, and you're against the tanks rolling into the cities and on the streets of the people who live in China, you seem to be okay with the fact that you unleashed your police, your federal police, local police, state police, whatever kind of law enforcement means you had, you unleashed them on peaceful protesters. That is a disgrace. And the people around the world are aware of that. They know that. But what's worse, Mr. Trudeau, if you yourself is watching, which I doubt you are, but I'm sure some of your supporters can bring this message to you. What's worse than making this statement is the fact that Canadian Parliament members who support him, the Prime Minister, are becoming the laughingstock of the world. And they're putting a stain upon themselves, a stain upon democracy, a stain upon their nation like at no other time in history. Because they know full well that Trudeau's a liar. They know that he basically is an individual only looking out for his survival as a political, and I won't even call him a leader, as a political advocate, if you will, before the world. But not all these people around the world are stupid. They're not dumb. They see with their eyes, they hear with their ears, and they know exactly where the Prime Minister is coming from. But here's something else more astonishing, more startling. In fact, so startling that I'm still waiting to hear members of the Canadian Parliament by the hundreds shouting out to the Prime Minister that he should resign. Because after we learned that there is a reported conversation between Trudeau and a number of people, I believe it could have been in a caucus, a conversation about putting tanks in the streets of Canada during the protest. Now, can you explain that, Mr. Prime Minister? Can you explain to the people in the United States of America who absolutely, I can tell you, who absolutely are shocked over a statement from a person who's supposed to be leading a free country, from a person who's supposed to be supporting freedom and liberty, to even have a discussion, a suggestion, an idea to put military tanks in the streets of their country against their own people? That is exactly the playbook that we've been talking about for a long time regarding the Canadian Parliament members who support a friend of President Xi, meaning Prime Minister Trudeau. That is out of the Communist Chinese Party's playbook. If the police can't handle it, get the troops out. I would hope and pray that that day never comes. And if that day ever comes where he issues such an order, or even an individual like Joe Biden tries to issue such an order, that the United States military here in America and the Canadian military will not obey those orders. They in this country are unlawful. I don't know if such orders in Canada would be unlawful, but I would hope to God that the military in both our country would understand that you don't turn the military of the people against the people. But you see, it's just like what Biden tried to do here. He tried the Ministry of Truth. Well, that went out the window. He tried to sign executive orders regarding all sorts of money giveaways and infringing on the individual rights of the people in this country. Well, on January 3rd, he and the United States Congress, now under the control of the Democrats, will no longer have any power. And that is exactly what's going to happen in Canada, believe me. You work within the framework of the law, you use your heads, you start thinking about how can we conquer the beast, if you will, within the framework of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada and within the Constitution of the United States, and it works. It's working here. It's a long fight. It's a slow fight, but we are winning. Now, Biden and Trudeau have consistently, I've heard this from Biden, and I'm sure that some of you Canadians have heard it from your Prime Minister, have consistently identified those of us who are calling them out, those of us, we the people, if you will, who are taking them to task on their policies. They call us fools, and they claim that we don't know better. They know better than us, right? They're the wise individuals that know better. We're just people that are to become subservient to their call, and they identify us as fools. Well, I'm going to read something to them. I'm going to read something to them because I know some of them are watching. I'm going to read something to them that was authored by someone who knows better than all of us. I want you to listen to this, folks. This is truth. This cannot be disputed. And God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and the weak things of the world to shame the strong. 1 Corinthians 1:27. So, Mr. Trudeau and your supporters, I say shame on you. I ask you right now, who is wise and who is strong? It's not you, Mr. Trudeau. It's not the Canadian Parliament members who support you. It is we, the people. We are wise and we are strong. So wise the Canadian people were during that Freedom Convoy that they work within the framework of the law. Not one Canadian citizen did I see in any of the videos that I have, and we have hundreds of them, raise their hands in aggression towards your stormtroopers. Not one. But I do have videos, and we're publishing them all over the country. I do have videos of police breaking windows of private property, of doing things that no police officer should ever do. And every single one of them should be fired. Fired. In fact, they should probably pay a heavy price on criminal charges and go to jail. I've been a police officer for 38 years. I've seen police officers here do things they should not do, and they were prosecuted, lost their jobs, and yes, some ended up going to jail. But for a government leader like you, Mr. Trudeau, and shame on those parliament members who support you, see what we see and know what we know and do nothing to protect the people, well, you have a problem. And the problem is not only with the people in your country who are working within the framework of the law and who are going to win this fight for freedom and liberty. Your problem is also with the people of the United States of America who know what's going on in your country, who's getting very, very, very astute in getting educated and getting a lot of knowledge about what's going on in your country, and who's now going to engage the political people here to take some action. Like the Ohio State Legislature did, that your countrymen, all right, who support you, that your members of parliament who support you had no idea was happening in the Ohio State Legislature, who, by the way, put you on a religious watch list. That's just the beginning of the response, not only from America, but I'm sure from around the world, because we have a list that we are also going to publish and send to our congressional representatives of European leaders, and there's about a dozen of them, who have condemned your actions, Mr. Trudeau, and the actions of the parliament members who support you. And by the way, I said it over and over and over again. There are no secrets. Everyone gets caught. You commit a criminal act, an unethical act, you're going to get caught and you're going to pay the price. You may think right now you're getting away with a lot of shady stuff, but you're all going to get caught. Believe me. I've been around in law enforcement long enough, the military long enough, and yes, I have been involved in politics just about my whole life, and I've noticed one common thread, that when politicians are corrupt, when they commit illegal acts, yeah, they get away with it for a while, but they all get caught. You should be on your knees thanking the people of Canada for saving the grace of that country, because they're saving your country from the wrath around this world, because it is the people, not you. The people, not you, who are getting the support of people around the world, freedom-loving people. And so I just simply tell you once again, we the people, whether we're in the United States, in Canada, or anywhere on this earth where the property of that country is free, yep, we're much wiser than you think and much, much stronger than you think. So I come on tonight, ladies and gentlemen, especially addressing those of the Canadian people. I want you to know that we will not abandon you, that we will not be distracted from the work that we started about 1.5 years ago in helping you in your fight to preserve freedom and liberty. Yes, we're going to help the Chinese people. We've been doing that for quite some time, quietly. But I've got to tell you, because of what has happened with regard to President Xi unleashing his military on the people, we're going to be much more vocal and much more public, as I was tonight, ladies and gentlemen, before I came on the air on American broadcasting news shows. We're going to be out there, and we're going to be providing our countrymen and others around the world with information about the Chinese Communist Party and the thugs running that country. And by the way, folks, it's very important for you to know that, and I'll just expound upon this in a few minutes, that the Chinese people who are fighting for freedom and liberty in China, their relatives here in the United States, I've got to tell you, folks, they watch our broadcast. They watch our broadcast. I met with many of them a couple of years ago. I want to tell you that it is important, the work we're doing and you're doing. But we made a commitment to the Canadian people, and we intend to keep it. So please, a lot of the emails and messages I've gotten from the Canadian people is they're worried that we might get too involved in the war with Ukraine and Russia. Now we may be too involved and busy with China. It's not going to take one iota of work we're doing with you away. We're going to stand with you, and I've said together forever, and that is a commitment we made and a commitment we're going to keep. Now, here's something you need to know. I haven't talked about this, but I just want you to know this. I heard from Chinese citizens here in America who told me, like I shared with you briefly a few minutes ago, that they have been watching this broadcast. They have been watching other broadcasts around the world with regard to the fight for freedom and liberty in each of the countries that I'm about to share with you, but mostly about what's happened in the United States and in Canada. And they know that we're working hard. They know that our fight is tough, but they also tell me that they have been encouraged and inspired by the Canadian people, by the American people who are standing up for freedom and liberty. When they are fighting in the streets, folks, with their lives, they're not fighting like we are, okay, within the framework of our laws and on the social media network and the media network, but you've seen them, they're out in the streets. Many of them are probably going to be killed. But you, the Canadian people, please understand this. You, my fellow countrymen in the United States of America, you have inspired and you have encouraged the people of China, the freedom fighters, in fact, freedom fighters around the world who are seeking to have the freedom and liberties we have and that we are trying to preserve. You've encouraged them. You've enabled them to stand up and to fight tyranny. Their fight is in a very, very different way because it's a very different set of rules that they are being enslaved by. But nonetheless, we are going to and continue to inspire them together. Canada and the United States are leading this fight, and we intend to finish it. They specifically said to me, folks, think about this, that their encouragement has come from the people, not from the politicians, not from government leaders, but from the people. So your prayers, your work, your commitment to fighting for freedom within the framework of the law is being watched on a global scale. Now, let me share with you a short list of countries where people have been in touch with me, with regard to our broadcast. And let me say this to you, folks. The other night, last Thursday night, when we were on, I received some messages from people in Europe and other countries. So I want to give you a very short list of these countries where people are listening or where you have shared these broadcasts. South Africa, the United Kingdom, Australia, Italy, Lithuania, Germany, Sweden, Switzerland. That's to mention a few. And of course, here in the United States and in Canada. All of these people who have been in touch with us have told us that they have been encouraged by what you, the people, are doing in Canada and in the United States. Now, Mr. Trudeau, your listeners, your followers, members of parliament who may be watching this broadcast, I wonder how many emails and messages you're getting from people around the world in support of what you're doing. I would venture to say you're getting the complete opposite. Getting the complete opposite. So folks, here is what we need from you. This is what we need from you. And I'm going to ask you to do this. Please make it a point to do this. It is critical that our broadcast gets shared worldwide. It is critical that you share the information that we send to you, whether in writing, through newsletters, or on broadcast. Please share it, folks. This is feared. What you are doing, what we're doing here, and other broadcasters are doing in the fight for freedom and liberty is feared by those who are opposed to freedom and liberty. Those governments, the Canadian Parliament and the U.S. Congress, up till now, because we are now going to be in control, feared everything that we do on social media because they know that people, at least in America, and we're going to help you do this in Canada, are tuning more and more and more into social media broadcasts than network news. That is an absolute fact. That's why we are expanding and we're working hard to stay here, because social media is now television in the United States. Social media is now news in the United States. And on this broadcast, you know, everything we do, we keep within the framework of being credible and actionable. And we make sure that we get the truth out. And no matter how hard the truth is, we are going to make sure that we continue to get it out. So here's what I want to share again with the Canadian people, especially. We are more determined now than ever before to be a strong voice for freedom and liberty in the United States and in Canada and elsewhere where people need our voice. They need your voice. They need our voice. It's Canada and America together. That's why, you know, we're going to have our broadcast next year. In January, we're going to start it this week in North America, because we're glued together now. An alliance between the people of Canada and the people of the United States has been created like never before in the history of our nations, thanks to Prime Minister Trudeau. Isn't that ironic? Yeah, the Canadian Parliament and the actions of Trudeau have caused a great, great alliance between freedom-loving people. You see, there's also another scripture, Mr. Trudeau and Canadian Parliament, what men meant for evil, God turned for good. I believe your action turned for good. I believe your actions, Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Biden and Parliament members who support Trudeau and Democrats who support Biden, I believe those actions are downright evil. When you hurt the very people you're supposed to serve, protect, and defend, when you hurt them for your own political and personal gain, you have committed acts of evil. Commit a crime, well, you're going to do the time, no doubt about it. Commit an act of evil, well, you're going to have somebody else to answer to. And believe me, when you answer to that person, and you know who I'm talking about, you would rather be sentenced by a judge here on earth than sentenced by him who sits above. I am determined to get that message out and to get people to understand that we are on the right side when it comes to justice and freedom and liberty. And we're going to win, folks, believe me. So now more than ever, we're going to dig our heels in. We're going to fight this fight. We're in this fight together, folks. I do not want anybody in Canada to just don't even put it in your mind that we're going to be so busy that we're not going to be continuing the fight with you, because that is not going to happen. We have gained a lot of ground. We're working hard with some of our elected officials, local, state, and county, and we're working so very, very hard to bring about public awareness as to what's happening in Canada, as well as here in the United States. And it's working. A lot of news you're not getting, a lot of information you're not getting, but we will get a lot to you as we continue. But I'm going to ask you to also do another thing in addition to sharing these social media broadcasts. Please don't believe everything you read or see on the internet. You've got to understand, folks, that we're in a war, and it's a war mainly right now of information. The Chinese Communist Party will send information out that'll try to divide and conquer, that'll send your head spinning. Remember, the only weapon that the Chinese Communist Party can count on, as well as, I believe, the Trudeau government and the Biden government, is fear. They will try to put fear in your hearts, fear into your minds, put so much fear into you that it'll paralyze you. That's their modus operandi. Just put fear into them, so they say, paralyze them, so they say, and then they win. But it's not working. We're still here, and we will be here as long as it takes. You are still here. This flag with a maple leaf on it is still here. It still represents freedom and liberty. This flag, the Stars and Stripes, is still here. It still represents freedom and liberty. And forever, these two flags will fly over our countries, despite what those who are trying to take our freedoms away say, and despite what they do. So please stay focused. Delete information that you're not sure of. Yet don't even pay attention to a lot of this stuff. Tune into our broadcast. Tune into many of the broadcasts you have up in Canada, where you have great freedom fighters, people who are looking to work within the framework of the law, or bringing great guests on. We're not the only broadcast. We're probably the only one in the United States that's doing this, but you have a good number of organizations in Canada who are doing what we're doing. Mainly support them, folks, with your prayers. One prayer is worth more than $1 million, believe me, folks. So stay focused. Stay focused on your prayers. Talk about what we're talking about with you. Share with your neighbors, with your friends. Information right now is critical. I was on the air today on U.S. Broadcasting Networks, and we were talking about what's happening in China, and I brought Canada up also on one of the broadcasts. And I reminded the people on the broadcast that we had this problem once before. We had the problem with the Soviet Communist Party. We had the problem with information being withheld from the people in Europe. And what did we do? We created Radio Free Europe. And so the Canadian Parliament members who are watching, Mr. Trudeau, your supporters who are watching, you really want to get embarrassed? Just try to pull something like that, denying or inhibiting the ability of people in your country from communicating openly and freely, like with that ridiculous Bill C-11. Because if you do that, what'll be embarrassing is when we decide to create Radio Free Canada. What an embarrassment. I don't want to do that, but I have no problem leading the fight to do that. And I'm sure I'll have thousands, if not a few million Americans who will learn a lot before that comes, who will support that. Radio Free Canada, is that what you want? If somebody was telling me that they were going to start Radio Free America, it would be an embarrassment. But maybe you people, meaning the Parliament members and Trudeau, are beyond embarrassment. Maybe that's the case. I would certainly be embarrassed over what your Prime Minister pulled by telling us how concerned he is about the people in China. Well, Mr. Trudeau, if you're that concerned, how about categorically condemning with strong words the Chinese government? And that goes for you too, President Biden. Categorically condemn President Xi. You see, the problem is you can't. You can't, because you're friends with the guy. Biden, we know what's going on with you, your son, and the Chinese government. Trudeau, we also know what's going on with you and your pals in the CCP. You're all part of the same family, the same crime family. Yeah, that's what I believe. It's a crime family. You see, Mr. Trudeau, in the United States of America, we could voice our views and opinions without worrying about stormtroopers coming in and stopping us from what we're doing. And we're going to continue to do that. And I say that because I have received some messages from people who support you and your policies. I think it's comical. They got to learn about our Constitution and the fact that we will exercise our free rights and we will not fear our government, as demonstrated in this last election cycle. More Republicans elected to governorships, more Republicans and conservatives elected on local, state level government offices, and now we have control of the U.S. Congress. And believe me, and here's something that I've said to the Canadian Parliament members and members of any parliament around this world who are opposed to freedom and liberty. What is happening is Democrats that have supported Joe Biden are jumping ship. Remember I said that? They're jumping ship. They're turning on him because they're looking out for their own survival. They're turning on him, and down he's going to go. Yes, folks, I don't believe he's going to be able to finish his term because I believe the Democrats are going to force him to resign, or somehow, some way, they'll make it clear that if he tries to run, that they will have a challenger in the Democrat Party. So the days of Joe Biden and the Democrat Party power base in this Congress and in this country are numbered. And the days of Justin Trudeau and people like him in Parliament who support him, your days are numbered. Now, you could go off and you could laugh at what I'm saying. You could make fun at it. And, you know, I've gone through that for many years in this country, but it ends up that at the end of the day, we were right and they were wrong. So stay together, folks. Stay encouraged. We're going to work on this issue together. Stay focused. And remember, please always keep this in mind, that no one, and I want the Canadian people to hear me, no one is going to be left behind in the fight for freedom and liberty. Remember, stay focused. And also remember these words. At the end of the day, they lose, we win. Let freedom ring. God bless you all. Thank you for spending some time with me. Hey, look, we'll see you Thursday night on one of our final broadcasts tonight in Canada before we transition next year over to this week in North America. But boy, we have a mighty God, right? We have a strong God and we have strong will. That's another thing they fear, is our will, our determination. That's what they fear. They're not going to drag us down. They're going to try, but they're going to try so hard, they're going to run out of gas. They're going to run out of energy, because we are going to continue to stand firm and strong in a fight for freedom and liberty. Thank you all. God bless you. God bless Canada and America. And remember, see this? Together forever in the fight for freedom and liberty. Thank you all. I'm Lieutenant Lt.Rogers. And please share, share, share. Thank you. God bless you. Have a great night.